Welcome to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Austin, and it is once again my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. I am especially excited today because I am here for the fourth year in a row with the BMWC podcast season of 2019, and it is definitely something that is on fire this year with more than 57 participants here sharing their industry information and encouraging you to see what's going on and how you can elevate your business and career endeavors. Just in case you did not know, the purpose of the BMWC is to not only unify us from around the world about what we're doing in business and careers, but we're sharing this information to encourage you so that you can make an informed decision about your life choices. Also, we want to take a moment to ask you to please like, share, and vote for your favorite podcast participant. We have 7 awards coming up this year. And if you're interested in learning to know who won an award last year, please visit the past pages, 2017 and 2018, to see who has won a BMWC award. Make sure that you also check out all of the pages and listen to the podcast interviews from all the participants, because we have a humongous amount of information that we are sharing across the spectrum in all the industries that we can gather here this season. And so today we have none other than Dr. George Fraser from FraserNet, and we also have Brian Oles, owner of the Black Speaker Network, here to co-host with me today. And I'm just very excited to have the two of them on this podcast. You want to stay tuned and listen to the entire thing because it's going to be epic. Before we get started with our interview today, we would like to take a moment to thank our corporate sponsors, who are My Financial Home, Evangelism Radio, JNF Enterprises, Sears Consulting, Autism Families Rock, Awakening to Love, Eli Natoli, Kimberly McLemore, True Synergy, and Platinum Financial Services, along with our other BMWC participants who is helping to make this season a huge success. So today we are going to be interviewing Dr. George C. Fraser, who is the chairman and CEO of FraserNet Incorporated. It's a company he founded more than 30 years ago to lead a global networking and economic development movement for people of African descent. Born in Brooklyn, New York, he was an orphan and a foster child for 15 years. And from that experience, he has grown up to be a successful businessman, where he has written more than 6 best-selling books, to include success runs on our Race and Click Upscale magazine named him one of the top 50 power brokers in Black America. He is also going to be featured in the BMWC magazine, where we're going to be featuring Power Play folks. So, and to make it all special today, we have none other than Brian Oles, CEO and founder of the Black Speakers Network. And a lot of people have heard of him, and he's also a 2017 BMWC podcast participant, where his link is going to be also on this page so you can check out his past podcasts. And so with that, I would like to welcome Dr. George C. Fraser and Brian Oles to the podcast.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And Brian, it's good to be on with you. And congratulations for the incredible work you're doing. And, the book is thebomb.com. So I guess we'll chat about that later. But
Absolutely.
And thank you for the great hosting. And I know what will be a rich conversation, because that's how you roll.
Absolutely. Oh, that's how I roll. Definitely.
Dr. Fraser, I don't know about you, but I'm going to hire Ann just to go around the country and introduce me. Even in situations where, even when I'm not speaking, I would just have her introduce me, and then
just an introduction would be great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think everybody loves the way I introduce people, but you know what? The honor is mine. And Dr. Fraser, I know that for most of your life you are well known, but we have people who are probably listening from their mobile apps and also from other countries abroad, the United States. Just simply introduce yourself and, talk about your background and what was your interest as you was growing up before you got into what you got into today.
Well, I came, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, New York, and they say you're either a thug or a gangster if you're from Bed-Stuy. Well, I'm a gangster, and you're going to find that out in a few minutes. But my father came to this country in the early 1900s from Guyana. Married a beautiful fair-skinned sister, Ida Mae Baldwin from Lumpkin, Georgia, and they purchased a home in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York. And when I turned 3 years old, they had 11 children. My parents had 11 children, 8 boys and 3 girls. And when I turned 3 years old, I'm now the youngest in the family. My mother became mentally ill and was institutionalized for the balance of her life. My father, who couldn't get a good education and get a good job as a black man in the early 1900s when he came here from Guyana, was relegated to driving a New York City cab for 12 to 14 hours a day. He could not take care of 11 children. So we were orphaned. And I stayed in an orphanage from 3 to 5. And then, because no one would take 11 children, we were broken up into threes, and I spent the balance of my young life in foster homes, in toxic foster homes, which is not an indictment of foster care. I'm a huge fan of foster care. It's just an indictment of the particular foster care that I was under at that time. Remember, I'm born 1945. I'm 74 years young, so I'm old school, OG, and all of that. I went to a vocational high school because no one thought I was college material. Excuse me, but somehow I ended up with 3 doctorate degrees, but that's a whole nother story. And I graduated with a vocational diploma in woodworking. And because the Italians controlled the carpenters union in New York City at that time, I couldn't get a job in the carpentry industry. So my first real job was mopping floors on the midnight shift at LaGuardia Airport while I sort of paid my way through college during the day. And I'm actually very proud of the work that I did at LaGuardia Airport. If you were to go down to, if you were to go to LaGuardia Airport, go down into the maintenance department. There's a plaque on the wall. I'm on that plaque. I was the best floor mopper in the history of LaGuardia Airport. I took ownership of those floors. They were my floors, and I was competing with everyone around me. So I thought, so I believed. And my father, although he was sort of a strict West Indian, he impressed upon us, as well as our foster parents, impressed upon us, do it right or don't do it at all. Do it with excellence. And of course, this was a Dr. King notion as well, whether you are a street sweeper, a floor mopper, be the best that you can be. That attitude of excellence really sort of cemented in a deep-seated psychological way my attitude about every single thing that I attached myself throughout my entire life. Do it with excellence. Do it with exceptionalism, and be gangster about it. Yes, I'm going to change the definition of the word gangster from a thug life to mean black exceptionalism. So when I say to you, Brian, gangster baby, gangster, that means you are exceptional. Right?
I just think that's amazing that you took that mindset of to have the attitude of excellence and doing everything 100% on a gangster style. I really would love people to embrace that as opposed to what's happening now in terms of what is gangster or what is considered powerful. And you kind of taken that term and turned it around into something positive. And so I think you have an amazing story. You remind me, way back, my mom, as she's several years younger than you are. And, and looking at how I remember some of the things that she went through in her lifetime. And my grandmother, who also said, be the best that you can be your best, dress your best, smell your best, act your best. Those were her 4 things. And I carry that still today. And so it looks like you have taken that to the max, gangster style, I have to say.
That's right. That's right.
So Brian, what do you think about that? What is your take on that term?
Yeah. I love the term, first of all, and being from Bed-Stuy, I think that's something. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I think anybody from an inner city that's made it can relate with that, with those experiences, and the additional just kind of levels of swagger that you can have to translate into your life, whether it be in the boardroom or anywhere, any other area. But one of the things I'm most impressed about, Dr. Fraser, and I'd love to ask you, as we're thinking about this, I love the fact that you were going back and pulling out the gems of your experience. It was just so easy, and I think it's pretty much par for the course for most professional speakers, most people that are accomplished, especially with the decades that you have behind you, to, you know, jump immediately to those accomplishments that most people would associate with, you know, success. You just, the thing I love about you is that you just glazed over the 3 doctorate degrees and you went right to that plaque from
I know he
LaGuardia
did glaze
Airport.
pretty smooth though, because he's gangster, right? So he
Yeah, that's
glazed.
right. That's right. Glaze right
But
Absolutely.
over that. You know,
it,
that was
it's
icing
just
on the cake,
impressive.
baby. That wasn't the cake. That's icing on the cake. That ain't the cake. We're the cake,
Well.
right? And we got to
Well,
bake the cake, and we got to do the
Mhm.
work. And you know
Mhm.
that. Both of you know that because both of you
Mhm.
represent that, and both
Mhm.
of you model that. And
Mhm.
and that's what we must model, the behavior that we expect from our people. And in fact, I think
Mhm.
one of the keys to being an effective speaker or writer is to be transparent, to be honest, to tell your story. All of the lessons are in the story. In fact, Les Brown and I wrote a book called Mission Unstoppable: Extraordinary Stories of Failures, Blessings. Right, and all the lessons are in, you know, in the failures. Right, it's not necessarily in the successes, and so to be a great speaker, you've got to have the 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 what's the word I'm searching for? The courage to be honest and to tell those stories and to
Mhm.
extract the lessons from the stories,
Mhm.
because the obstacles yeah, are the way. That where there are no obstacles, there is no way. And our lives are full of that. I mean, our people is overcoming obstacles. We look at the 400-year history of our people in this country. It is overcoming obstacles. We are very special people. We are an anointed people. I think, though, that many of us do not know who we are. We have forgotten who we are. In fact, not only have we forgotten who we have forgotten that we have forgotten. We are awesome and powerful people.
Wow.
We tend to focus on the 400 years of oppressive conditions in America, but we never focus on the 6,500 years of amazingness of African
Mm.
people. We were building pyramids and solving complex engineering problems when other cultures were living in caves, eating each other, right? And if everything happens for a reason and serves us in some special way, because God works in mysterious ways, if in fact this is the truth, in spite of the fact that America kept its foot on our throat for 350 years, we overcame that and we rose like the phoenix. So again, God works in mysterious ways.
Mm.
So if you think about this deeply, maybe we were not brought here. Maybe we were sent here. Do you believe that God would send His weakest people to America to do His toughest job? I don't think so. How could an America who could morally, spiritually, biblically justify the kidnapping, raping, and pillaging of another two people, natives already in America, and Africans brought to America, have any moral or spiritual grounding? And perhaps had God not sent Africans to America, America might have self-destructed by now. This is how we have to see our role. God works in mysterious ways. Everything happens for a reason and serves us in some special way, and you will never understand that reason looking forward. You will only understand it looking backwards. The same as we look backwards on our
Mhm.
struggle in this country, and as we
Mhm.
look backwards on our lives and the obstacles that we have to overcome to get where we are.
You're right. I don't think a lot of people have looked at our history, our legacy, our ancestry, to this extent. And that's why I really appreciate you, Dr. Fraser, for bringing that out, and for people who are listening to really deeply understand what you're talking about and how we need to keep that in the forefront of our minds, to know how we're actually bettering ourselves over and over many many years. And frankly, for me personally, and I'll probably get some dings for this, but yes, I get tired sometimes of hearing about the oppression, and I think that's what drives me to continue bringing out the positive, because I know it couldn't have all been oppression. or everything didn't have to end with oppression or sadness or any of those things. And I try to do what I can with whatever talents I have to talk about the positive. And I know, Brian, that you're doing the same thing as far as speakers and things like that. I'm doing them from speakers, authors, and working professionals, but you're also empowering your speakers to see that as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things I'm most impressed with you, Dr. Fraser, is that you continue to, bring that historical perspective and help us understand and just give us a different framework for how we're able to see ourselves. And I think that's really the one of the pillars that Black Speakers Network was built on. It's not about necessarily having to change anything different, which there's a lot to be changed, don't get me wrong, but just to be able to shift the mindset, shift the perspective of how we see ourselves. There's a lot of power in that, and I definitely appreciate the work that you've done to do that.
It was Dr. John Henry Clark who said that a tree without roots cannot grow. Right? We must understand the depth and the strength of our roots, and really appreciate what we have done, and we have not only survived, we have thrived. Now we're not where we need to be. They started on the 95-yard line. We started on the 1-yard line. So we're not where we need to be under the oppressive conditions. But all things considered, right, we have come a long way, but we have much further to go. So therefore, I am not happy, but I'm motivated by a positive anger directed towards positive change. Positive change. And so we have to keep our people inspired. That's, again, the goal of a great writer, the goal of a great speaker is not only to inspire, but it is to educate and to empower your people. We must empower our people. And, that's what we're doing on this call today.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Fraser, I would like to ask you, can you talk a little bit about the pivotal time in your life where you felt like you needed to go into this direction to really speak on the empowerment of leading and the movement of African descent, to where it kind of led you to your educational pursuits and going into speaking publicly about the movement of African descent? What was that thing in your life that happened that drew you to that conclusion to go?
We all have a teacher that we remember in life. I remember Mrs. Lambert. It was in the 4th grade that Mrs. Lambert, our English teacher in Emily Dickinson public schools in New York City, recognized a hidden secret that I had, and that was that I could not read. I really couldn't read. The 4th grade, and I really couldn't read. She recognized that. She was very discreet about it. She took me to the side and she said, "Georgie boy," that's what they used to call me, "I'm going to spend my time with you this year teaching you how to read. I'm going to bring you books from my home. I'm going to give you personal, private lessons." She took a liking to me. I was very shy and very humble, but very teachable. And she taught me how to read. That is when the light went on in my life. To this day, I read 100 books a year. If you if you could be in my office right now, I'm talking to you from my office. I have 1,000 books in a magnificent bookcase built by Amish people in my office, which is but a fraction of the books that I have in my home. All right.
Brian,
So
we have to go to Dr. Fraser's house and look at these books.
I can attest to that. He's not lying, because we did the webinar a couple of days ago, and I saw all those books are right there. So he is definitely speaking the gospel.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
And so that was the pivotal moment. That was a wonderful question. Actually, no one has ever asked me that question, but that was the pivotal moment when I learned how to read and discovered that the breadth and depth of what I did not know but was available to me just by opening a book, and I didn't have to pay for the books. I could go to the library, right? right? I could learn anything. I can go anywhere. I can imagine anything. So between reading novels and reading biographies and reading, I was always interested in business. I was always very entrepreneurial, right? A whole world opened up to me. The DNA of my intellectual curiosity was excited. And that was in the fourth grade, and now I'm 74 years old, and I'm still as curious and is still as interested and is
Yes.
still as excited about opening a book and reading it and learning. And I think once that light turns on in any human being, but in particular, brothers and sisters, a whole nother world of opportunity and building our capacity, right, will open up to you. Reading is
Mhm.
powerful.
Yes, yes, and Imma tell you why I'm especially excited when you said that, and I don't know if you heard me, but I gave you a standing ovation over here, all the way over here in Maryland when you said that because, like your situation when I was in school, I didn't have the best teachers. And I literally got all the way up to the 11th grade and still could not properly read properly
Mm,
or do
mm,
math properly or any of that. And a teacher had did the same thing, kind of said, let me work with you on your math. And then I had another one that let me work with you on your science. And from that moment on, I said to myself, I never want to feel like that I don't know something, and had triggered that educational piece within myself as well, which is how I created these platforms and programs that all the sole purpose of is information learning, learning what you don't know so that
yeah,
you can be better prepared. And so that's why I give you a standing ovation for that, Dr. Fraser, because I don't think I think a lot of people will read books, but just listening to your story inspires me to talk about more books or to encourage people to buy more books so that they can understand what people are going through, and to be,
yeah.
have even more people on the podcast to talk about the information. And I know, Brian, you guys have just came out with a Speak Up book recently. Brian, you could talk a little bit about that book as well, because I know that you and Les Brown and some other folks in the Black Speaker Network, right, is doing another thing that's also bringing awareness, correct?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the ability to open a book and to absorb information in that way is critical. And I think, Dr. Frazier, one of the things that, I mean, yeah, speak up, it's I'm still incredibly humbled by the fact that we could, have two of, what I consider the original gangsters, we're using the term gangsters of the speaking
Hmm.
industry, bookend on both sides of that book with you, Dr. Frazier, and Les Brown, and 32 of our co-authors. It's truly an amazing, truly an amazing thing. And one of the things that you mentioned there is that, the book had the wisdom that you wish you had when you first started speaking. And so, certainly having opportunities like this and having an opportunity to get into books, and it gives you direct access to that wisdom that you otherwise don't have to live yourself to be accelerate your performance. But one of the things I would like to ask you, Dr. Frazier, is because we're talking about literacy and we're talking about reading, and one of the things I know that you've been a lifelong advocate for has been financial literacy. And you had this stated goal of wanting to create educational centers across the country. And so now that we know how to read, and that's a great accomplishment, to make sure that you are putting yourself in a position to absorb information on a regular basis. But getting deeper into the financial literacy piece, I just want to learn a little bit more about that goal, and also how does that juxtapose to the fact that you've heard the quote that 43 million Black people in America, but they're only 10% are financially literate. So for you, how does that impact you? And also, what is the, well, I guess, how do you define financial literacy versus um, just traditional literacy? And also, what is it that's driving you to hit that goal of opening those financial centers?
Well, the statistics are driving me in terms of the trends and the data and the analytics about, economically speaking, where black folk are as compared to white folk, the gap. the wealth gap between the two is widening, and it's widening in general in America. And you know that when white folks catch a cold, black people catch pneumonia. So the gap is the widest that it's been in probably two or three generations. You hear those statistics all the time. But one of the things that scares me are the statistics that are being published. I posted something on my Facebook page today, but it was the Institute of Policy Study did a major study. At the conclusion of the study, it was a 200-page study on the wealth gap between blacks and whites. And here was a conclusion of the study, and I quote from the study: by 2053, just 10 years after the country is projected to become majority non-white, black median families will own zero wealth. If current trends continue, white median families will continue to own six figures, $247,400. So what they're saying is in the next 30 plus years, unless something changes, unless we become smarter, unless we do things differently, unless we become an economically literate, not illiterate, but literate culture in a capitalistic society, we will essentially work our way into a second slavery, right? Now, we will not be picking cotton, but we will not have any money. All right. So I don't know how you function in a market-based economy in a democratic capitalistic society without money. So we have to do something. We now have a choice. We've got about 30 years to turn this around. We have got a choice, and we've got to make the choice to educate ourselves and to educate our children. And then that task has to be taken on by someone that thinks, in a sense, entrepreneurial, right? In a sense that knows how not only to have ideas. I tell brothers and sisters this all the time: ideas are great, but systems are better. So develop a system by which we can systemically and systematically educate our people. And the place that has to be done is in the black church. That is historically the most important leadership institution in Black America. That is where we gather. Every good thing that has ever happened for Black people has come out of the leadership of the Black church, whether it is our fight for freedom, civil rights, voting rights, or public access. So financial education and financial literacy must be led by the Black church, and that is why we developed WINS, WINDS, wealth building centers and curriculum. So this is a whole refreshing and rebranding and restructuring of the old school wealth ministries. There are 85,000 black churches, about 10,000 of them have wealth ministries, and they need to be upgraded and improved. There are 121,000 black folk in America licensed in some financial service, whether it be insurance, banking services, stocks, bonds, tax preparation, you name it. There are 121,000 of us. Many of them are unutilized and underutilized. They can be the instructors, and it's a place where people can learn and earn and return. And that's really what it's about. So we're launching it. We've already launched it. We opened our first big mega WIN Center in Charlotte at Mount Carmel Baptist Church. 1,000 people showed up for the grand opening. We're opening up the next one on this Saturday, and two of them in Birmingham, Alabama. And our goal is 10,000 of these wealth building centers, WINS wealth building centers, and curriculum. We have our own curriculum designed for the way black people learn. We're oral, visual, tactile, kinesthetic, and auditory learners. So our curriculum is designed for that. So it's a very exciting new vision. I'm planning to invest the rest of my life in making sure that this certainly gets on solid ground and get a good start.
So, Dr. Fraser, for the flip side, from an entrepreneur standpoint, because you touched on that a little bit, and I know that one of the challenges for very small businesses and even mid-sized to larger businesses, especially in the minority community, is twofold. One, of businesses not having the ability, because they don't have the resources or the money, as you said, to conduct learning institutions, but also the mind frame of people who are not attending learning workshops and events of this nature to keep things rolling. So, from your perspective, what can our people do to better ourselves in making sure that we are growing as a small business and also learning what we need to learn and embracing and changing our mindset that we need to come out to events?
Yeah. We just need to know that we're all that in a bag of chips. We are incredibly creative people, no question about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We can learn, and we have the capacity to learn and to create, to make a way out of no way, to make something out of nothing, right? We are, in a sense, we have an inbred entrepreneurial spirit, but that has been tamped down by the old school mantra of our parents. And as you heard me say earlier, when my father came to this country, he couldn't get a good education and get a good job. So what did he want for his 11 children? He wanted us to get a good education and get a good job. That's what he wanted because he couldn't get that in America. Well, that was right at that time, but that mantra and many of our generations, 97% of our people have jobs, okay? About 3% of us have businesses that must grow in the 21st century. We must create work and jobs for our people. We must end up being the number one employer of our own people, as Jews are the number one employer of Jews, Asians are the number one employer of Asians, East Indians are the number one employer of East Indians, and go on and on and on. So we must change that mantra. And that mantra must now be the mantra that I've taught my two sons. Get a good education and create a job. Create a job for your children. Create a job for yourself. And if God gives you the power and the glory, you create work and jobs for our people. So the entrepreneurial spirit is in us. It has just been repressed, but it is there. Because, there are many stories of when we were less than, and when America wouldn't bury us, when America wouldn't bank us, when America wouldn't feed us, when America wouldn't let us sit in their restaurants, we did our own, and we did it better in many cases than they did. So much so there was jealousy and hate and destruction because of that. So we have the capacity to do it. We now just have to turn that spigot on. We have to create a sense of urgency among our people. We need our own versions of the Paul Revere's. The British are coming. The British are coming.
Mm-hmm.
Second slavery is coming. If we don't do something different,
Mm-hmm.
we must learn. I say this in conclusion. We must learn what I call the 4 pillars for the intergenerational transfer of wealth, and that is proper management of accumulated wealth, the importance of real estate, the importance of business ownership, and the importance of proper insurance. We must stop
Absolutely.
dying and leaving our children in debt. We can't even bury our damn selves. So
Mm.
we have to fix it, and that's the the 4 corners of our curriculum deals with the 4 pillars for the intergenerational transfer of wealth, and certainly at our Power Networking conference that we put on every year. There are
Okay.
only 2 things we talk about: business and money.
Mhm.
Business and money.
Okay. So
Yeah.
at this point in the interview, Dr. Fraser, you have a new book, best-selling book, Success Running Our Own Race and Click. Can you talk briefly about that and maybe any upcoming activities or conferences that you're going to be into in the next few months?
Well, the book I'm recommending today is Speak Up. I mean, that is the way that book was designed, the way
Speak
it's laid
up.
out,
Mm-hmm.
the contributing authors and their powerful stories, which are inspiring and
Mm-hmm.
empowering. I want people to read that book. You can pick it right up on Amazon. I think it's even right now an Amazon bestseller. Speak Up. I wrote the foreword. Les Brown wrote the afterword. And it's a very powerful book, beautifully done, beautifully packaged, colorful, beautiful colors. It's just, but most important, rich content. My latest book is a book I did with Les Brown, and that is Mission Unstoppable: Extraordinary Stories of Failures, Blessings. And then me and
Mm-hmm.
my sister and I wrote Who Would Have Thunk It, the first adventure of the Fraser foster kids.
Mm-hmm.
Success Runs in Our Race is a modern day classic, required reading in 57 historically black colleges. You can pick that up on Amazon. Click, you can pick up on Amazon 10 Truths of Building Extraordinary Relationships. Now, in terms, fast forward, what are we doing? Every year we put on, this is our 18th year at the Power Networking Conference. Forbes magazine called it one of the top 5 conferences in America, not to be missed. Not one of the top 5 black conferences, but one of the top 5 of all the conferences put on in this country, not to be missed. We focused on 2 things: business and money. Business and money. money. That's all we talk about from 6 in the morning to 12 midnight for 4 straight days, 96 intense hours with 50 of the baddest brothers and sisters, 50 experts. And we are a training conference. We do not pontificate ad nauseum about issues in Black America, right? We talk about business and money, and we train our people with the strategies and the tactics and the lessons that they need to grow themselves, to grow their businesses, to grow their careers, and to raise their consciousness about who they really are and how beautiful and how powerful and how important they really are. It's a conference not to be missed. Now, it's in Houston, June 26th through the 29th. June 26th through 29th in Houston, Texas, at the Hilton of America's big, beautiful hotel in downtown Houston. If you want more information about the Power Networking Conference, go to powernetworkingconference.com. That's www.powernetworkingconference.com. That's powernetworkingconference.com. Everything you want to know about the conference and how to register, how to be an exhibitor, how to be a sponsor, who's going to be there, the whole career, everything is on that site.
You gotta be in the room. That's right.
Got to be in the room.
So that's right. So Brian, I would like to ask if you have a final question for Dr. Fraser before we close out on his interview.
I do, and it's actually related to the Power Networking Conference and networking in general. So, and I had the distinction of going to the Power Networking Conference last year, meeting you, Dr. Fraser, for the first time, and it was phenomenal. But there's this narrative that I would love if we could focus on for a moment, going back to what you were saying about the challenge of building Black wealth and the 4 pillars. And the narrative that I hear oftentimes is that Black people don't work together. Like, we don't build each other's businesses. We don't refer business to each other. We don't buy from our own brand. So I'm just curious from you, do you feel that one, I guess, do you agree with that narrative? And if so, why? Or if not, why?
Yes, I absolutely agree with that narrative. It would be almost impossible to deny it. It is changing incrementally, probably too slowly. We've got, and we're going to introduce something at the Power Networking Conference that we believe that will help make a quantum change in that attitude. Why are we like that? Because we have been taught that. We have been Willie lynched to death. We have gone through the most egregious form of slavery in the history of humankind, nearly 250 years of it, 12 generations of that. It has, in a sense, changed some of our DNA. And if you've read the Willie Lynch letter, it's published, by the way, in Success Runs in Our Race, the first time it was ever published in a major book, the Willie Lynch letter, you will know that we were trained that way. That was beaten into us. We were taught not to love ourselves, not to love people that look like us, but to love people that look like somebody, look like someone else that was not us. So there's a psychological conditioning that has perpetuated itself. And then you add into the mix, into the stew, the negative stereotype imagery that we see constantly portrayed about our people in the newspapers. And if there's a positive stereotype, the only thing you think that Black people could do is sing, dance, play football, baseball, and basketball. Those are the positive images. The other images, you know what they see. They know what we see. So let me say that differently. When you have that kind of psychological and media assault on a people, not only do others believe those stereotypes and behave as though they believe them, but we actually believe them ourselves. You see, when I look in the mirror, if I do not like what I see, there's no way that I could love you. Because when I look at you, you become a reflection of me. This is deep-seated psychological stuff. This is called low race esteem.
Wow.
Low race esteem comes from low self-esteem. When you hate someone anyone that looks like you and will not cooperate, will not connect the dots, will not do business with them for all of the stereotypical reasons that have been portrayed, right? You are contributing to low race esteem. And so we must slowly but surely dig our way out of this. And this will take a whole nother level and generation or two of reading, consciousness building, and finding ways to help us respect and to love ourselves. And I think the economic challenges that we're faced with will help bring us together around that.
Wow, just a powerful interview with you, Dr. Fraser. I kind of want to go all day, but I know that we have to end at some point, and I really want to appreciate your candor and your transparency in your position and how you feel regarding, our African American people and other minorities in this space of wealth and business, and being able to push through and recognize where we are, who we are, and how we impact others. And so I want to also thank Brian Oles for popping on here and being my co-host to ask the questions and representing the Black Speaker Network. I think we have three powerhouses here on the interview. And so for those that are listening, make sure you rewind and catch a lot of these intricate details that Dr. Fraser and we are talking about, because it is impactful. It impacts us in so many ways, and it's carries on generation to generation to generation, as you heard in this interview. So make sure that you vote, like, share, and vote, and definitely share this message to as many people as you can. And also check out his Power Network. Go to his webpage. Just go to the bottom of his page right here and click on his links, as well as click on Brian Oles' link to hear his podcast interview and how he is managing the Black Speaker Network if you're interested in becoming a speaker. And if you're interested in being a podcast next year, make sure you check in with me for the 2020 podcast. That'll be our 5th year going in. And so, Dr. Fraser, Brian, thank you so very much for being part of the movement and being in this podcast.
Thank you. This is a great. And Dr. Fraser, I will be at the Power Networking Conference. Looking forward to spending some great time with you, and anybody listening, if you are there as well. Looking forward to meeting you in Houston, 26th to 29th.
God bless you. Thank you both.